Welcome to the 12th edition, I guess, or 12th episode of our Fandom Feels Hangout with the Fandom.net. And this month we are basically going to go through. Today is a special night because we're actually going to go a little bit longer. We have two books to cover. We'll be covering. Uh, One of them is Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which is the first book in a trilogy. And then the second book is Golden Sun, which Dobby loves apparently, which is book two of the Red Rising trilogy. And of course, we are doing this in support of Pierce Brown and the books because next month, February 9th, is the release.
22 days. Sorry,
22 days is the release of book three, which is
not that I'm counting the days or anything.
So before I go any further, let me go ahead and introduce us, basically. So I'm Natasha, and I am joined by Kate.
Hi, guys.
And Ellie.
Hi.
And so we will go ahead and start discussing this amazing, amazing book, or these amazing books, basically. And so if you want to follow along with us, please do so you can do so on our Twitter account, through our Twitter, under the hashtag, whoa, Fandom Feels. I have no idea where that came from, but under the hashtag fandomfeels.com. Hashtag Fandom Feels. And you can follow us at FandomNet.
Apologize.
That's our Twitter handle. And or you can follow along on our Google page, which will be tweeted out.
Yes.
And it's also on our website, thefandom.net. And of course, if you want to follow along on any future updates about the books and whatnot, you can do so by following along on our website, thefandom.net, or through our Facebook page or our Twitter account, which we're on as well.
3 places.
So, what was it, 3, 4? I'm sorry.
3 places you can find out more.
Oh, yeah. So, anyways, we are going to go start. I guess we're going to start, I'm going to start just kind of like rehashing the, we'll start with the first book. And obviously these are, we're talking about the books, so they are going to be spoiler-filled. We'll have questions about it. We're going to talk a whole lot about the characters and what's going on. But
and
let me go ahead
all of the intense spoilers.
Exactly.
And there were very, very intense spoilers.
So we'll start off with Red Rising, of course, the first book. And Red Rising, in this world, it takes place, in the future. Earth is not actually the most popular place. Other planets have been terraformed, and humankind has spread out throughout the galaxy. And in one of those places they've spread out is on Mars, and which the story takes place in. And the society that the humankind lives in is a color-coded society. So the color red plays an important part in the story. There's a character named Darrow, and he's a red, and reds are considered like the lowest of the low of the colors. And Darrow himself is red, and he basically doesn't realize the reds. What are they? They're the terraformers, basically, of these planets. But they don't realize that during this time that they've been terraforming the planets underneath the surface, the society has grown above the surface. They still think that they're terraforming and that people have not yet made their presence known. And so something happens And I try not to get too much into the story because there's a lot to fill in. But basically, his they're in I guess a deprived society, and they know that there are others out there that are higher than them, but they still think that this planet Mars needs to be terraformed, and so they go about their business just terraforming underneath. And when they but something happens where his wife Io realizes that that they don't need to be, I guess, would you call it? Suppressed, I guess, in a way, with with this world that they live in, and she basically makes a sacrifice, and she sacrifices herself for the betterment of the Red Society, and because of this, Darrow ends up ends up opposing what's going on, and so he basically ends up getting killed trying to do what he feels is right. But he doesn't actually get killed. And it's hard to say how that happens, but basically when he wakes up, a bunch of people tell him that there is a whole group of society, or a whole society living above the surface, and he realizes that they've been duped. The Reds have been duped, that that they've been basically forgotten, and so he wants to seek some kind of revenge for what for Io, for what she wanted him to do, and to break the chains that have been binding them underneath. And so the golds are the ones that are in the higher society, and so their plan is to make him a gold. And a gold, he ends up being transformed, and it's a painful process and everything. And once he is able to transform himself, he's trained and taught how to be a gold. And through this, and this is the whole thing in kind of like the first third of the book, and then after that, he goes into what's called the Institute, and the Institute is where they learn, or where they basically kind of go to school, learning how to be an even better gold, what they call a peerless scarred. And it's ruthless, it's violent, it's basically all kinds of horrific things that can happen in a school, what they call a school. And they learn how to basically live off the land and fight against each other, but also learn how to be leaders and stuff like that. But it's pretty ruthless and pretty exciting, and then the people that he meets throughout this process, other golds, he kind of befriends them. Unfortunately, he has to. That's why he's in there. He kind of weaves himself into that society, into the gold society. And throughout that, the whole purpose is for him to just integrate himself, be part of it, so that in the future he can lead fleets or lead whole, groups. And the purpose is to just, I guess, break down what they've built in the gold society. What have I missed?
I think that breaks down the general plot premise, but
Okay.
I'd love to go back to the beginning and discuss the stuff that you didn't want to spoil. Because
Yes. Okay, so you basically know, you probably know, since you're here, if you're here watching this, you basically know the whole idea of it. So we're going to go ahead and just start with, what your first, if you can remember what your first impressions were when you first read the book.
Yeah.
So, Kate, what were your first impressions?
When I read, this was a book that I saw, and I went, oh, that seems interesting, and I didn't really buy it right away, and then it went on sale, and I bought it. and then it sat on my Kindle for probably another 6 months. And then, once I actually got into it, I was like, what the hell was I doing? Just like this sit on my Kindle. Why didn't I read this one sooner? Because I really liked it. However, I'll admit, and I think you guys can agree because I know you guys both read as voraciously as I do, that without intending to, you kind of become a book snob sometimes. And in those first chapters, I'm like, yeah, poor but hot, but happy, and they've got oppressors, and the wife's an optimist, and the wife's gonna die, and then she does. And for like the first 15% of the book, I was kind of like, yeah, I've read this before, but then it just got so good, and I stopped being so like sickly, I try not to be the awful stubborn book reader, but I kind of was in the very beginning. But then the rest of the book just like blew all my expectations out of the water, and I'm so happy that I read the whole thing.
For me, the one thing, I actually disagree. I feel like everything happened so quickly at the beginning that I was like, wait, what? Because she died in like the first chapter. He died in the second chapter. And I'm like, what did I just read? Like, what is happening? And then the one thing that threw me off was because I'm so used to reading YA and about teenagers either in high school or at the age in which they would be in high school in a different society, it was weird to me that he was married. Just because I'm so used to characters that are not at that place in their lives yet. And he was still pretty young. But that's what I kept being like, I can't get over the fact that they're married.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those books that you had both read before me, and I texted you both throughout my entire experience reading it, so you know exactly how I felt. I will say I remember being at the bookstore and texting both of you again and saying, hey, I'm going to get Red Rising. Do you think I'm going to want to get Golden Sun now too? And both of you were just like, yes, do it. So I did, and thank goodness, because if I did not have Golden Sun to open right away, I might have died. In fact, I think I did die after finishing Golden Sun, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt like it was like something that I read before, but I do remember just how affected I was by it already in the beginning, especially with Eo's death. Like, it already, like the characters already affected my emotions, and I was drawn in, like, almost pretty much immediately. And that doesn't happen often. I mean, that happened with the Hunger Games. I think that was the last time. And I was drawn in really quickly with this one, too. So, yeah, I definitely liked it. I was kind of, hesitant about it because sometimes...
I'm sorry.
Oh, is that your phone, Kate?
Yes, I need to explain what the foghorn is.
Okay, let's find out what this foghorn is.
And I can't get it off vibrate mode without somehow clicking out of this chat. And
okay.
Every time I get an email or something, my phone vibrates.
So note to the world, do not contact Kate right now.
Yes, please don't text her or email her or notify her of anything. Anyways, as I was saying before I was interrupted by the foghorn, but basically, yes, I was drawn in. I felt really like I felt connected to Darrow already, I guess, in a way. And this harsh life that they've been living. One thing that did confuse me a little bit was the red talk. They have certain terms that they use in this world, And basically, it's just terms to describe certain things and stuff like that. But that was like, that's minor. Everything else, so about the books were about this book was just amazing and fascinating, and the idea of this whole, these people just not even knowing what is going on above them. They're all underground. They've never seen the sky before. They've never seen anything outside of this underground world that they lived in. And to think that they were working for something that they thought they were doing, for all humankind, and they've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that really fascinated me. And this book is just amazing after that. Okay, so going on, Red Rising has been compared to like the Hunger Games, Ender's Game, Game of Thrones even. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
You're both going to hate my answer, so I'm not going to go first.
Go first, Ellie.
Go ahead. It's okay, Ellie. You have your answer immediately ready. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm someone that enjoys comparing books, and I know neither of you are, but I do. And so when I was reading this one, I would think of it first as, oh my gosh, Dobby, as
Gosh, Dobby.
That's not what I would think of it as. So first of all, the only of those three series that I've actually read is The Hunger Games. I've seen the Ender's Game movie, and I've stayed away from Game of Thrones for several reasons. But we're not going to get into that. So I actually did, as I was reading this, say that it was basically what would happen if instead of district citizens fighting in the Hunger Games to survive and for entertainment, if it was capital citizens fighting in the Hunger Games in order to kind of prove themselves. Stop it. So I think it is a fair comparison in that they are both deadly games where children are sent there to basically fight it out and people are sitting there watching and controlling and sending them gifts when they do things that are good. So I think it's fair. And then Ender's Game, in that they are kind of testing them this whole time to see what they do, and then the people that come out on top get leadership positions and crazy things like that. And then the actual feel of it, from what I know of Game of Thrones, is more of a Game of Thrones feel because of the castles and the fighting and the crazy, crazy people. So I think it's fair, and I think that you're able to compare all three of them shows that it's not that similar to any of the one, because all three of those are very different things. Except that they're all games. They all have whatever. They all have games.
Word game in it, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think it's bad to compare to any of those three things because they're all known for being absolutely wonderful. That's my little rant. Only book one, though. Only book one. Book two is its whole other thing.
We're only talking about book one anyway right now.
I know.
How about you, Kate?
I find comparisons really difficult because, you can say it's like the Hunger Games in that there's, people fighting each other in an enclosed space in a game-like fashion, but, at the same time, freaking Stone Cold Steve Austin did a movie that was the same concept before the Hunger Games came out. So, Stephen King books have had the same concept. It's not necessarily new or specific to any one genre or anything like that. And I should mention that the Stone Cold reference is thanks to my husband. Don't judge me. But, just...
Yeah.
I was in trouble with that one when people are like, oh, they're in some sort of, controlled environment and they're at war with each other. That's not particularly new. And but I will say, and this was actually very much a compliment to this book, I read a couple of the Ender's Game books, and while I did enjoy them, they got really heavy on the politics in the way that I found kind of pompous and just really it bothered me. It took away from the story a lot for me because the pacing didn't control itself in a way that I enjoyed. So I said, if you read Ender's Game and you thought it was kind of high on its own politic, then this series is for you because it has that same like amazing space opera feel in which young people are, being tested for a greater cause, but it doesn't feel quite so haughty.
Okay.
And Game of Thrones, I'm not really an expert on that one either, but I mean, other than unexpected violence, which is cool by me, I don't have much.
I guess it is a fair comparison, I guess, for some people, and it's just a way of drawing in people to read the books. If you like The Hunger Games, or if you liked Ender's Game, or if you like Game of Thrones, you actually might like this book. And I understand the publishers for doing that. At the same time, sometimes that turns me off, but which is weird because it's not like I don't like The Hunger Games or I don't like Ender's Game, which I've only read the first book of. And I haven't read any of the books of Game of Thrones, but I have seen the series. I understand the whole idea of drawing in those people who like those things because those are very popular books. And so I guess in that way it is a fair comparison because the book itself, Red Rising, is such a good book that it should draw in those people. Aside from Darrow, which we all know is an absolute favorite character, which character or characters were your favorite?
Mustang! I love Mustang and Severo.
I always go for Severo first.
Sorry.
I don't know why, but I tend to.
I should have set up so you could have said it.
And I should say this is only for Red Rising. I do like Rook in Red Rising. So.
Yes, we'll get into that later, but I can't right now. I am going to agree that those are the two other favorites are Mustang in the more traditional sense, that she's like this badass chick who comes in and outsmarts the boys, or doesn't do that in the long run of the story, but for the most part she does, and she's clearly in control, knows what she wants, goes after it. She's she's a ballsy chick, and I really enjoyed her. Severo was a lot more unconventional to love because
he's an unconventional character.
He's an awesome character.
Yes. Yes, he is.
You guys know me. I'm a sucker for the love story in books, though.
Yeah.
Of course. So Darrow and Mustang are definitely going to be your favorite.
Well, give me a love story and I'm just done. I'm over it. It's over. I'm there.
Now Darrow mentions Io a lot. This is first person's perspective, of course. So we get a lot of mention of Io, even though she was only in the first couple of chapters. Do you think Io would have done what she did had she known that Darrow was going to go through? Like the whole the carving situation with Mickey. I'm like, he basically died in that. Um, and you know, just having to do what he had to do in the Institute, do you think she still would have said, yeah, break the chains?
Well, I have problems with Io as a character because she was not, because, you know, if you're willing to sacrifice yourself for the cause and kind of help put things in motion, I do understand that. But I think that, to answer your question, if she's willing to sacrifice her own life, she really doesn't give a damn what happens to Darrow as long as he helps the cause. Because she's clearly putting the cause above everything else. Which, you know, in a revolutionary situation, I suppose that is something you have to consider that I never had to on a personal basis. But
we all have never had to. I don't think so. Hopefully we won't have to.
I just knocked on my wood table.
um,
I struggle with Io. I don't know her motivation at all. Like, I have no idea if she, like, had a feeling that it would go down this series of events, and that's why she did it, because she clearly wanted Darrow to, like, react in some way. Like, she didn't want him to just curl up and die. But but I don't think she, like, knew about what was coming. I have no idea. So I don't know. I don't understand her character enough.
yeah,
And
I guess.
that's partly because we only got her for a chapter.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess we only have had her for like, I don't know, 2 chapters or whatnot.
Yeah.
I guess you know, for me, the character of Io is an impressive one, but at the same time, it's not. You know, unfortunately, she did not love Darrow as much as Darrow loved her. It seemed like she was all about, you know, just being. She really was. I guess it was that she didn't mind being that martyr if she felt that there was something for other people to live for. But then, yeah, she ended up using Darrow, I guess, in a way, to serve her purpose. And not saying that she didn't love him, but she didn't love him enough to just continue on with life the way it was, I guess.
It not necessarily just continue on with life the way it was, because if she wanted to be a revolutionary in some format, she probably could have been. And over time, she probably could have convinced Darrow to do so as well. But we basically see them have a one conversation, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not too sure," and her reaction is, "Well, I'm going to martyr myself, and from that, I expect you to do something major to help stem a revolution." Okay? Like, and that's where I struggle a little bit.
For the record, the dog barking is not Dobby.
Can you hear the dog barking?
A little.
Because I swear that dog has been barking like for the past 2 days. I want to shoot the dog, and I don't want to shoot dogs. That's how bad it is. Anyways, okay, keep going here. Let's see.
Oh, I want to say hi to Flo that's watching and threatening to text Kate's phone.
Oh no! Don't do it, Flo. Don't.
All my notifications for the Twitter accounts so that when somebody retweets us, we will not hear a buzz, so please don't be afraid to tweet at us.
All right. Okay, and so now we know about Cassius and his situation. Darrow was forced to, in order to get to the next level, Darrow was forced to kill off somebody. It was like 2 or one-on-one matches. They were trapped in the room, and one had to kill the other in order to move to the next level. Darrow, of course, unfortunately had to kill his newfound friend, Julian, which happened to be Cassius's brother. So Cassius, though, did not know this, and he thought it was Titus. So with that in mind, with this whole thing, Darrow had allowed Cassius to duel Titus instead of doing so himself, because Titus had wronged them, I guess, in the Institute, and Titus was, or Cassius had thought Titus had killed Julian, not knowing that it was Darrow himself. Do you think Darrow was right to let Julian duel Titus? I mean, they talk about it in a book, but what are your thoughts on that?
I really don't have a whole lot of qualms with it, because we have to remember prior to that essentially the House Mars had broken up into a number of factions within itself, one of which was being run by Titus, and they were we're just going to rape and pillage group. So Titus, despite all that, and despite actually being a red, which was a holy crap moment for me, he was not of his right mind, and he was not a good person. So frankly, one of them had to take him out, and at that point, I didn't particularly care who it was.
Who it was. The fact that he had, the fact that he had raped somebody, and basically done despicable things.
He cut off body parts.
Mm-hmm.
It was and sent them out. No.
Even Titus himself probably didn't care who was going to kill him. He was.
He probably would have preferred Darrow to do it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have wanted to give a gold the satisfaction.
Idea, though, that Darrow was a red also?
Didn't he make a comment to him about it?
Not really. He slipped up and said bloody damn, but he didn't call Darrow out as a red.
And Darrow caught that.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you think that Titus had an idea that maybe Darrow was also? Because he even said, he thought that they were kind of in the same mindset.
Yeah, I thought they'd had a conversation.
They don't say it out loud. It's never like, you're a red too, but they both kind of do a sideways acknowledgement that they are the same. And and Darrow kind of says, oh my god, he's a red.
Right, because there was something that Severo needed to cut from the audio at the end.
Yeah, that was when Titus had said, not when Titus, it was Darrow had said something to Apollo. That was a different conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But basically,
this is why I need my books. And negative shout out to my friend Ariel, who has had my books for months.
Negative shout out.
I need them
back.
I don't know if
that's even a thing. Is that even a thing?
I'm calling her out. So rather than shouting out, I'm calling her out.
All right. That I was gonna say, that thing where Titus does reveal himself, but he doesn't say he's a red, but he does say the word bloody damn. And that's the one time that Darrow realized that Titus was a red, and probably had kind of lost his mind a little bit through that, but at the same time, he had his own pain, I guess, as a red. And so it was, during this time, it was his chance to do to them what was done to him. Unfortunately, I don't go by that rule, but he does. um,
Well, good
and
there.
then the only time, yeah, when I was gonna say when Darrow reveals himself is when he is about to kill Apollo and he says bloody damn, and that's the point that Severo said, oh, I couldn't hear the audio there, so I cut it out, which is interesting. It's like, how much did Severo know?
Severo. But Severo has his own secrets. Okay.
Would things have gone differently if Darrow had told Cassius about what he'd done? About the fact that he killed Julian?
Well, I think he'd be a whole lot deader from the very start.
You know, because it would have given him, like, if he had done it in a way where he could kind of explain and, like, let him know softly, rather than him. No, rather.
I don't know if there's a way to let a Bologna know softly that their brother is together.
Well, dude, if he had been the one in the room with Julian, what would he have done?
Oh yeah, well that would have been different, but
Now I'm thinking about Ember in the Ashes.
that would have been different. However, you know, he wasn't. You know, I mean, at this point, remember that part when he was like saying, you know, oh, let's play a game. Let's say who we killed. You know, trying to.
No, but I think
that definitely.
I think if Darrow had done it in a certain way, he would have been furious with him at first. But first of all, he could have made sure that Cassius didn't have any weapons at the moment that he found out. Second of all, he could have, like, told him in a way, like, what other choice did I have? And
which he did.
Part of the hurt was the fact that Darrow had been lying to him or hiding it from him all of that time and being such a good friend to him while keeping this. So, yes, I'm not saying that Cassius would have been like, oh, buddy, we're totally cool even though you killed my brother. But I don't think it would have gone down as badly as it did.
I don't know. I don't think that Cassius would have thought about it that way. I think he would have tried in all aspects, in all ways, try and kill Darrow. Even if he tried to tell him kindly, I guess, in a way. I think the one probably major mistake that Darrow did was stay connected, like you said, like as a brother to him. You know, instead of like trying to step back and kind of like, you know, not be friends.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I guess it was kind of too late, at least in Darrow's eyes.
I don't think there's any way that situation possibly could have gone right, because even as you said, if it were Cassius in the room with Julian and that, you know, it's different. But clearly Julian died, and anyone who killed him, you know, Cassius was going to, you know, avenge his brother. It did not matter. And eventually, even if he didn't have a weapon right away, even if it was broken to him gently, this is, you know, as we've learned through the books, a very hot-headed man, and he was absolutely going to kill somebody for that. There was no escaping it.
And as a,
except
I guess
you know that there was.
Like, as his family line, that's just how they are. You know, it seems.
And to be fair, I shouldn't be complaining because that's what led to the Mustang romance.
True. True. If Darrow hadn't been dying because of Cassius' sword, then yes, he wouldn't have formed this relationship with Mustang. So we probably all shouldn't be complaining about that. But at the same time, I'm like, it was just kind of a sad thing, all in all.
Cough, cave scene, cough. I mean, what? I'm not comparing.
Okay, so when the group, you know, when they finally form together, they're finally banded as House Mars now, and they go to take over.
Are you talking about the end?
House. House Jupiter, and they come across this guy named Lucian. Did it occur to you guys that this Lucian was the same person that was the Jackal?
Yes.
You did.
Right away, but as he became
Right.
influential, I was like, this guy is probably the Jackal. Because it's somebody who's going to be sneakily influential. And, you know...
Not like the first moment we saw him, but slowly, yes.
And how would you compare, say, the Jackal to, well, it's kind of hard to say because that's in Golden Sun, but I was going to say, how do you compare them to the others? But what was your thoughts on the Jackal in the first place, I guess?
Well, my main thought on him was I guess it's this little, like, working class family feeling that I have, that whenever it's like you find out, you know, that he's Nero Augustus' son, and that he, you know,
is the favorite to win.
Being coddled through this tournament because he's meant to win and be someone great, and the entitlement of it all, it's just like, damn him straight to hell, he needs to go down right now. And I was infuriated by how slick and just intelligent he was. He could work himself through any situation, and, you know, not to say that the situation never got the best of him, because clearly it did at points. But he was a great antagonist, because he just, like, made all my nerves crawl. The part where he just cuts off his hand.
Just like, yup, boom.
Like, this guy, I've been going through 2 whole books of this guy just needs to die.
Well, we'll get into Golden Sun.
Yeah, we've got soon. We're about the halfway point.
Did it concern you guys at all that him and Mustang were twins?
Momentarily, yes. So, okay, my one issue with this book, my only issue with this book, really, is the ending was very anticlimactic. Like, you have the Jackal, and he gets away, and then we send Mustang after him, and then there's this huge reveal. Oh my gosh, they're twins! And then they stand there ready for this big fight because Mustang totally joined her brother, and they're going to be coming to fight against them. And then it turns out Mustang didn't join her brother, and she just brought him as a prisoner, and it's over. I'm like, and at the same time, Cassius is like, okay, I give up. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so we're done. Cool. That was my one complaint. I was expecting Mustang to end up on Darrow's side, but I was expecting a bigger scene of that happening. I was expecting her to, like, pretend to be on Jackal's side and then turn on him or something. Not just, like, bring him as prisoner and be done with it.
I guess that's something that was done probably outside of the book. That's how she was able to capture him. Who knows? Because that wasn't something that was, I guess, noted. But yeah, that's fair to say. Did you feel that way about the ending, Kate? About it being, like, anticlimactic?
I don't remember being particularly disappointed in the ending, but, like, when the way Ellie just described it, I'm like, yeah, there was a lot of potential missed right there. But I don't remember feeling that way when I read it, probably because by the time we get through to the point where Darrow is going into I'm blanking on the name, where all the house leaders are watching their castle.
Mount Olympus.
Yeah, and I'm totally blanking on that right now. I apologize. By the time we got there, I was like, okay, so conclusion is coming. And it took a little longer after that, still, for the conclusion to come. So by the time we got there, I was like, I'm good. Yeah.
I guess I think for me it wasn't anticlimactic because the ending wasn't quite that ending. It was where they did overtake Mount Olympus, and he ended up
I should say
killing.
the game ending.
Yeah, or
The
the school.
institute ending.
Yeah, because there was definitely more to it, and so we see the part where he actually overtakes Mount Olympus and kills Apollo.
That's true. That part was not anticlimactic. Just
yeah.
the
I think they killed
the game.
not just Apollo, but I forget if they killed the other proctors. But and then we also find out. I think this part was probably more surprising to me, or maybe not, where we find out that Darrow is Fitchner's son, and Fitchner being, the proctor of House Mars, which seems so fitting. Were you guys surprised about that one as much, or more, or less?
I wasn't. I was surprised, but I was also really happy because I was like, this makes sense. They're both crazy bastards. Clearly related. That I love. Both crazy bastards that I love, I should say. Darrow is one of those characters that made me uncomfortable, but I also, on the other hand, thought he was the most interesting and the most exciting character.
He's someone I wouldn't want to know in real life.
Yes.
Reading about him in the book was awesome.
There's a lot of them that you don't want. I wouldn't want to know.
Well, yeah, I don't want to know any of these people in real life.
Yeah, and then of course we find out at the very end that he decides to choose House Augustus as where he wants to be. What were your thoughts on that? Like, were you like, I need to read the next book right now?
Well, yeah. You knew why he did
Darrow
that.
was crazy, or that was a brilliant idea.
You knew he was doing that because that was his best chance of. He was placing himself where he needed to be to move forward with the plan. So I wasn't surprised that I was surprised at how quickly it happened, but I wasn't surprised that he took that opportunity at some point.
Or maybe I should say, would you have been able to do that?
Probably not.
That
I wouldn't have been able to do anything in this book. So.
Knowing that this person had killed your spouse, your husband, or your wife, and you in order to gain your revenge, you'd have to join with him.
I feel like it takes a lot of discipline to be in it for the long con, and I'm not sure that I, as a person, actually possess that discipline, especially when the long con involves,
murder.
Killing a bunch of people for loyalty.
All right. So, and then in that sense, then with the conclusion of Red Rising, what were your overall thoughts on that in the book? I guess what did you rate it as? Let's just say that. What did you rate it as?
I think I gave it 4 stars, actually, the first one.
I'm actually going to check right now, but I think
I gave it 4 stars.
But I am one of those people I can't give the first book in a series 5 stars. So this was probably more of a 4.5, except damn it, Goodreads, you don't allow that.
Right.
But like I said, I did have some, not trouble with the beginning, but I was a little, I can't even find the word, but you know, it's like that book fatigue where you're like, oh, I feel like I always know what's going to happen next. I had that a little bit with the beginning of this.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who are watching, if you're watching, we are going to go into Golden Sun Book 2 because we want to get through these before the third book comes out. And I'm telling you,
22 days.
22 days, apparently. And if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask any under hashtag Fandom Feels. And with Golden Sun, there is a time gap. So I think at least 2 years have passed. Darrow is 20 years old now, is what we find out.
For 3 years, because I think it ends he's 17.
Was I right?
Yeah, I know he is at 17, but then they said like 2 years, so it's almost like it was like 2.5 years. Like apparently
Some time has passed.
Around 2 or 3. Let's just say that. But yeah, and in this story, Darrow is under House Augustus, so he's a Lancer, what they call a Lancer for House Augustus. Him and some of his other Peerless Guard are in that same house. Roke is one of them. He has also Tactus, I believe, is another one, which was somebody that you had learned about in Red Rising, and then Victra, and Victra is the half sister of one of the characters that we met in Red Rising, which is Antonia. Yeah, and Antonia was the one that, well, there's a lot of characters in her, but Antonia is someone that we really like that much. But Darrow has befriended Victra. Victra's definitely the nicer of the two sisters, I guess. And
you guess?
Yeah. So
Sorry, go
2.5 years have passed, and basically, hold on a second. Okay. And so basically, Darrow has lost communication with the Sons of Ares, which is a rebellion group that had basically brought Darrow from being a red to a gold, and he has lost contact with them. They haven't contacted him at all since he was in the Institute, and they haven't contacted him since then. So he's been basically on his own. He apparently had a relationship with Mustang during that time period, but that didn't go about correctly because he went to what's called the Academy, where he has learned to head his own ship, and it's basically more schooling, from what I know. And there's still battles, or there's still that Cassius is still kind of miffed at him. So is the whole House Bologna, and it's kind of appropriate that he's with House Augustus because they have this family rivalry between the two. But at the same time, the Sons of Ares, the people of the Sons of Ares, are also now starting their own way of battling and causing all kinds of terrorist bombings and killings and whatnot throughout the galaxy, I guess, because this has happened both in Mars and in Luna. And we are introduced to a whole bunch of other people. Of course, the scope of the book becomes bigger at this point, where we meet the Sovereign, who basically is in control of everyone, and then we meet a whole bunch of other people. Certain things happen. A lot of traitors come about, I guess, in a way. And if you don't know about that, then you need to read it. But I'm not going to go into that because we already know. Why why do you think Pierce Brown chose to have book 2 place about 2 or 3 years after the end of book 1? What was the purpose of that?
I think it's just to avoid that kind of falsity that you see in a lot of series that war happens overnight, and that you can, make a plan and in a matter of months, change the world, because more realistically, it's going to take years, especially if you're infiltrating a government in order to ruin it. You don't just get everyone's respect and attention in a few months, and suddenly they want you to, or they trust you enough to be part of your cause. It's something that takes a long time, so you have to give it that time.
Yeah, I mean, basically the whole book 1 takes place in a year. I mean, we were talking. Well, actually, it takes place longer than a year. The Institute was about a year,
Yeah.
but there was a time that his transformation from being red to gold took
Months.
like a long time, months, and even longer than that probably. So yeah, there's that, I guess, that we have to consider, and that's probably why it seems like it should be a lot longer between the time in the Institute and now, because we didn't account for that time that he was being turned. I don't know, maybe. Anyways.
Well, it also gave Darrow a chance to get more training and find his place, and really kind of take over, in his family or whatever you call whatever. In his clan, I guess.
In the House Augustus?
Yeah. And then there's always Mustang dating Cassius, which tore my heart out. I was so freaking pissed. I was like, no, it's fake. No, she's not. No. No. I think. No. I almost said I think that one hurt the most, but hell no.
It does get revealed that was fake pretty quickly.
Right.
First time he confronts her about it, that Darrow confronts Mustang about
She's like, really? You think I'm really dating Cassius? Are you kidding me?
Well, it's not that she wasn't dating him. He was thinking that she was dating him because, she was doing it because she fell in love with him, but there was more to it than that.
Right.
Because they were together.
Even though it's not, the most family appropriate line, I do love the line she says to him, which is, "Do you think I'm just some bitch in heat?" It's like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, she and I guess in a way she was doing it to also protect Darrow, because she talks about how she wanted to protect her family.
Well, and that's and his life being in danger is what ends up making her give up the act, if I remember correctly.
But I don't think that she really gave it up. It was just the timing of it, because it all happens in the gala where he decides that instead of, remember how he finally meets up with the Sons of Ares, and the idea was to bomb the place and kill everybody inside. He saved Roke's life. He decided to leave Roke out of it. So remember, he injected him with something to get him out of the gala. And the whole idea was to bomb the place, but then he decides not to do that because that's not what Io wanted. And so when he goes through the motion,
that wasn't really the Son of Ares' plan.
Yeah, but we don't know that at that point.
Right.
But basically, what was I getting to? What point was I getting at? But basically, he she only reveals it to him then, but she would never. I mean, she wouldn't have she wouldn't have even confronted him had he not decided to step up and like challenge Cassius. You know, so she has her way, I guess, of doing things, and if it was to sacrifice being with Darrow, or sacrifice not being with Darrow and being with Cassius in order to save her family and Darrow himself, then she would have done it. I think that's me. Oh, okay, so Darrow has a lot of ups and downs in this book. Really? What do you think was Darrow's strongest moment, and what was his downfall? This one I have to kind of like think about more, but what do you guys think?
This one it's hard because I'm going straight to the end of the book, folks.
Yeah, me too, a little. But, I mean, there are a couple different things.
Well, okay, why don't we go with what was his strongest moment so that we don't go to the very end of the book yet?
But also from the end of the book.
His strongest?
Yeah.
I think when he kind of started going back to his roots. So, like, okay, so book 1, Mustang convinces him to make people love him instead of taking prisoners, because Mustang's awesome. And that works in book 1. And then book 2, for a period of time, he kind of forgets that. But I feel like there's a period of time towards the middle where he kind of starts to remember that. And, oh my gosh, when he befriends, what's his name? That awesome guy that he befriends.
That awesome guy.
But, like,
I think
the really big guy or something that he befriends, and it ends up...
the Stained.
Yeah. I think that was a really good moment for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I forget what his name was because he gave him a name. But he was, the Stained that, basically, was it the Stained are the more special obsidians?
Yeah.
Like obsidian squared, magnified or something.
Yeah, and then one of the moments I hate, that relationship comes in handy and saves his life.
Yes.
So I think that was a good one.
How about you, Kate? What was like, I guess, his strongest or highest moment?
See, for me, and I apologize because I am going to the end of the book, there's so many great action sequences. I especially love, taking over the ship, busting in on the council, that whole sequence. But there's a certain,
You can say it. We've all read it. No, I'm just kidding.
Giving himself to Mustang at the end that it was strength because it was vulnerability, and that's not something we actually see from the character throughout. Usually he's taking things over, he's busting down doors and doing all this, and there's almost no vulnerability to it. He's so efficient that I found more strength in the moment where he wasn't at his most efficient and he was actually doing something that was a little more out of his wheelhouse.
You mean with the video and his mother?
Yeah. Like, jeez.
Yeah. That part destroyed me, though.
That was actually one of my favorite moments in the book. There's a lot of them, but the one where he goes back and his mother even recognizes him.
I know.
Was like one of the best moments, I think, for me in the book. Knowing that they're still there, and And I can't talk about it too much because it gets me teary-eyed. So, okay. So what was, I guess, what was Darrow's downfall? What was it that, what was the worst? What was that moment for him?
Well,
I was thinking of it like, what did he do that
that
hurt
to
him
it.
the most? Yeah. So, like, for example, pushing his friends away.
Yeah. That's the thing when you actually consider the chain of events and how Darrow affected it. What he did that really hurt him is after it was known. All right, so let's get into this big thing where Finchner is Aries. We find that out, mind blown. Severo is like this, is a half red, half gold child that's supposed to be impossible, but oh my god, he exists. And he's this insane anomaly, which is probably why he's so weird, but it's amazing. And pretty much everyone who's close to Darrow has some idea what is going on, except Rope, who Severo goes, you probably shouldn't tell him, he wouldn't get it. And Darrow goes along with that, and there are actually multiple moments throughout the book in which Darrow has an opportunity to explain things or at least help make things clearer for Rope without necessarily telling him the whole story and giving away every secret of his life. There are things that he could probably say to ease the growing tension between them, and he never really does. Every time
He's like, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it later.
Too soon,
Like, I have plenty of time for that.
Until it eventually blows up in his face.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
What?
So true. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. When okay, let's go back to like kind of the beginning and the gala. So Darrow has a chance to kill Cassius. What like did you want Darrow to kill Cassius?
No.
I'm kind of afraid to ask, but at the same time I'm like I kind of want to know, like, do you think it would have did you really think that Darrow was going to kill him? I guess.
No. I don't think so. So here's my thing. Out of all of the antagonists in this book, all of the people that are against Darrow, Cassius is definitely the most sympathetic. Because, like, he has a real personal reason to hate Darrow. And even though, like, I've already said it doesn't really make sense because Darrow didn't have a choice in killing his brother, at least his reason for hating him is that he killed his twin brother, not some political reason. So I feel like I'm a little bit more lenient to Cassius than a lot of other people for that reason. I still don't like him, but I'm more sympathetic to him than other people.
Yeah,
Why don't you like him?
Because he's mean to Darrow.
yeah, I think it's kind of hard because in the first book, before it all got shot to hell, I really liked Cassius.
Not as much as I liked Roke. But I liked
We
him.
all liked Rogue.
Was another reason that we will get to later.
So, I mean, luckily, I guess luckily Mustang was there to stop Darrow from killing him because he could have. When the Jackal, we meet up with the Jackal again, of course. We know this and Miss
Oh,
Adrius.
that was another possible downfall for Darrow. Repeatedly underestimating the
The jackal.
damn jackal.
We'll get to that.
Always underestimating him.
We're
Always.
kind of getting to that right now.
Yeah, I know.
So we see at the gala also that there's a point when Leto, another Lancer from House Augustus, is about to kill Carnus. Now Carnus is the older brother of Cassius and Julian. Carnus was the one who said, I'm glad, and basically was glad that Darrow had killed Julian. And so when we find out Leto dies, and we find out who was the cause of that, and what did you think about Darrow forming this alliance with the Jackal?
I kind of felt from the beginning like it was going to blow up in his face. I just didn't know to what extent. It was essentially a situation where he felt like the House Bologna had become the bigger threat, and the enemy of my enemy is my
Well, and he
friend.
was in House Augustus. They were on the same team, right? They were now on the same team. Leave the past in the past.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, they were on the same team, but they were not thought of as equals because Darrow does make it a point to point out that the Jackal is becoming more like a silver than a gold, which would not fly with being,
Right.
the leader. And Leto was more like the one to become arch-governor than either of his own offspring were. So there was that to think about. There's a moment, there's one question I had in regards to the new Sons of Ares. You know how they said that Dancer was killed. And now Harmony is in charge, basically, it seems like. Do you think that how they do things is more effective than the way that they had planned to use Darrow?
No, and
The
I
way
think
Harmony was doing things?
yeah.
Yeah, they were the ones.
No. Yeah, let's just bomb everyone. Awesome. They'll give us exactly what we want. No. No.
And I think that can be made is the difference between people who want to see change and people who just want to get back at their perceived enemies by any means necessary.
Right.
So that was a great little kind of side story to add in that I wasn't expecting, that added a lot to the overall tone.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, showing the difference between like radicals and people trying to actually affect things. Stop.
Yeah. Okay. With that in mind, for you guys, what was the most painful moment? I mean, that's kind of hard to say, even for me, but what was the most painful moment for you in the book? Because this one definitely had a lot more, I guess, emotion in it than I guess, say, Red Rising did, and maybe it's because we now know the characters a little bit more.
No, I think it just had a lot more twists and turns and shocks.
Yeah, that too.
And
Obviously,
the shocks were like 50 times worse.
15 minutes, so I feel like we can talk about it now.
Yeah.
Obviously, that ending just
It's too okay.
Okay.
Okay, I literally, when I finished, once I, like, I don't know if you two remember, but I just, I think I literally just sat there and I sent the two of you a string of cuss words.
You did.
When I finished, I just like string of cuss words, and then I texted my other friend, and I was like, I am dead. This book killed me. I can't breathe. What just happened? And I was literally just sitting there on my couch, unable to move for at least 20 minutes. I My family was like, because I was home, it was over spring break, I think. But I was home in New Jersey, and my parents were just like, "Is she okay?" And I'm like, "No, I was not like that." I was like, I was just like, I needed to calm down. It destroyed me. But once I did eventually get myself together, I remember just going on a rant to my mom, who was never going to read the series, just being like, I should have seen it coming. There were 3 characters that were best friends, and they were kind of all ruling together, and one of them's freaking name was Cassius. His name was Cassius, and he started to hate the main character, and I didn't see the other one being Brutus, and I should have, but I didn't. Okay.
I believe I texted, it was not either of you, because at the time I finished, I don't think either of you had finished yet, but Crystal.
Oh, I finished it. I believe so. Because I think
okay.
you texted, well, you didn't text me, but you messaged me like effing rogue, a lot.
Flo remembers the text as well.
I did not say, folks. I did not. That was one of those things that, you know, in hindsight, it was a moment of, yeah, I should have seen that coming. That was going to happen, because he kept, you know, he really did betray Roke, but not telling him anything. He blew him off. He kind of.
And there were all of those mentions of, you should really tell him. I should really tell him. I can wait. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, with all that. But it's still kind of hard when, you know,
it's Roke.
Box, if Ares / Finchner's head is in the box, and then Roke just like stabs him with some stuff and leaves him to be killed, and, you know, while taunting him, like, this is not happening. And like, I don't get very emotional in the crying sense, but I get angry, and that was one of those times where I'm like, I am reading this on an electronic device. You cannot throw it across the room. Like,
the jackal. That. Ah!
Well, yeah, and Cassius is like, oh, you went and killed my entire family, including the children. How could you? And you know it was the jackal who did it. You just know it. And I'm like, you know.
Darrow's like, what are you talking about?
And meanwhile, it's a good thing, but meanwhile, you know, Mustang is nowhere to be found. And so.
Well,
I know.
She left when she found out who he was, which is, I guess, better than killing him.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking, but I guess it ended up working out, because she would have been there otherwise, and she'd be dead too.
Yeah, because out of the 3 of them, I think, you know, she was the one who would have handled it the best. You know, the thing is, Severo warned Darrow about Roke. He said Darrow was the one who asked Severo, "Hey, should I tell Roke what I am?" And he's like, "No. Roke has too much gold in him," or something like that. And
do you think
so,
that
like,
Severo was wrong?
Huh?
And then, do you think that Severo was wrong, and if he had told Roke, maybe things would be different?
Well, see, that's the thing. I think that Sever was right, but I think that after time, and maybe we'll find out in this third book, but after time, Wilk will realize, unfortunately, maybe too late, that he was wrong. But I don't know. I'm like, for me, I can see Rogue being like the prideful gold that would take it the wrong way if he found out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and would totally like just betray Darrow anyway, or have him killed. Probably not as badly as what he. I mean, if he had known beforehand, it probably wouldn't be as bad as it was at the end of this book, in the way that things turned out, because not only did he trust Darrow, but he trusted him beyond anybody else, and then Darrow never told him anything. And that was my most frustrating thing for me, in regards to Darrow, was
Yeah.
not being able to I know that he wanted to pretty much kind of separate himself from them because of the fact that he was still a Red. He knew he was still a Red. But the fact that
Roke was so loyal to him.
I know. And that was like another hard thing to deal
95%
with.
of the books.
And it was like, Darrow needed to trust somebody, and it seemed like he couldn't figure out who to trust, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't trust Roke enough. And that was the sad part for me, was that Darrow couldn't trust Roke enough. He trusted Severo because he found out what Severo was. And then I guess because he loved Mustang.
Also because Severo found out about him, and without hesitation was just like, hiding this for you. Done.
Yeah, but that's probably because he basically was already.
We didn't know that at the time.
But Severo was, he wasn't like a gold. He wasn't like acting like a gold, because he wasn't. And so
Right.
I think because of that, because of his nature, he was able to accept Darrow, because he was already spit upon and pooped upon by other golds anyway. So. Yeah.
I want to bring up a conversation that we had when I first read the series, and I always come back to it when I think about this series. So, starting to look ahead at book 3, but still kind of concentrating on what we know. We talked about like about Cassius versus Roke. Who do you think is more likely to be able to get redemption out of the two of them?
I want it to be Roke, because overall I liked him better as a character, and I think he was purposefully built up to be liked better for that big moment in Golden Sun. But realistically, it's probably Cassius who's going to get some redemption at the end of this.
Right. Well, and for the reason I said earlier, because Cassius has a legitimate reason to be angry and to be furious, whereas Roke has a reason to be a little hurt, but not like. But his reason for hating Darrow is that he's a Red.
Yeah.
Which, like, sorry, not a good reason. But so yeah, I agree. I think that I think that for Roke, the only redemption that could possibly come would be at the moment of his death.
Yeah.
Whereas Cassius, I think, has a chance of survival with redemption. Just based on his storyline and what we know.
Yeah. So we're kind of at the end, and we kind of just did it with that last question. Do we want to run through some quick predictions for Morningstar?
I have no idea. I don't even pretend to try to predict with these books.
Did you read the first?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't do that because I need to read everything at once, or I find it.
It was very short.
It was the first chapter, So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Was it the first chapter or first three chapters?
I think it was like the prologue, and it was like one page.
No, there was more.
There was more. Maybe I didn't read it.
I was gonna say, wait a minute. No, there was more because, oh yeah.
Maybe I didn't
Okay,
read
so
it.
anyway, if you got, I'll just say this. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm just saying, you know, it has been released. There's like the first chapter in there, and we find out where Darrow is. In between Golden Sun and Morning Star, there is another time gap, just so you guys know.
Yeah,
So,
has said that previously in a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
There would be, yeah.
Or a time lapse, but yeah, basically you'll find out where Darrow is, and you know, you'll see.
As long as Mustang's not dating Roke.
She's there to protect both the House Bologna and House Augustus now. No. Yeah, no. So, and then first of all, I do want to say, let me see. I think I never actually mentioned this, and I did want to say this. But the most painful moment for me, and it's a weird moment. There are painful moments in the book, but they're also like kind of feel like a painful moment was when Darrow saw his mother again. I mean, that was painful, but it was also like comforting. And then of course the ending was like pretty much like sensory overload and just shock overload. So one of the weird painful moments for me in that one was when Darrow finds out, not that Io was with child, that was painful too, but oddly enough is the point when he found out that Tactus, you remember that point where where Darrow bought him the violin?
Oh! Oh my
and
god!
Like, and like the Stradivarius, and then he said that he was explaining this to Victor, how he was saying that Tactus had actually sold it and used the money on apparently drugs and pinks, and then he claimed that Tactus is no friend of his. But then later on, after Tactus is killed, we find out that Tactus had actually bought the violin back and was learning to play it so that he can play a piece for Darrow. And that part was probably the most painful for me. Because that was like, it was very, very heartbreaking. Anyway.
Whenever you find out a loving moment after somebody dies, it's
too much.
It's
too much. Yeah, so in regards to the third book, which I'm so excited to read. As far as like predictions, I predict it will not turn out the way we think it will.
Right. So you predict that all of your predictions will be wrong. That's basically how I feel about this series. Yeah. Everything. I predict there will be a decapitation on page 312. Because Pierce tweeted about that today. Unless he was just trolling, which is also very possible.
I fear for the deaths of many, though, including Sebro, Mustang, Darrow.
No.
Roke and Cassius.
Roke, yeah, for sure. Roke is dying.
I'm usually one of those people
Jackal is dying.
Character can't die, yada, yada, yada. And this one I'm like, he could die, and I think it'd probably be justified, and I'd probably be okay with it.
Roke will die. Jackal will die.
I don't fear for the Jackal's death. I don't fear for that.
I don't fear for Roke's either at this point. I think I'm excited to see in what way he dies and what his last words are.
No, I fear for it because I still have hope that it won't happen.
No.
Because that's just how I am. And we went into this argument like that, and I remember that part. But that's why I was like, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut about that. Anyway, let's let's move on into what. How about this? A little bit of fan casting, because I had read a tweet just yesterday, I believe, where Daniel Sharman, and I don't know if you recall who he is, but he was in Teen Wolf, and he did read the Clockwork Princess for audiobook. But basically, he tweeted out that he was reading Red Rising. So, with the fan casting in mind, who do you think of, like, I'm like, for some reason, I just feel like I'm wondering if he's reading it because there's a possibility of a role.
I mean,
with that in mind, what do you think? Like, do you have any ideas of who Darrow could be played by?
I'd really like to see an unknown, and can I just say that Daniel Sharman is one of those guys who's, like, for me, the first rule about wanting to be in a book adaptation is don't go all over the internet and talk about wanting to be in a book adaptation. This kid has done it several times. It never works out. Announce your intention, you're done.
It hardly ever works. I think it worked for one person, but yeah, it hardly ever works.
Darrow, I have a really hard time fan casting. I think
don't try.
To be someone new. I have a really hard time fan casting pretty much everyone in this book series, so I think the casting director is going to have work cut out for them.
I always stay out of this conversation because I don't like fan casting.
Okay.
So because either I show my lack of knowledge about actors, which I have a large lack of knowledge about actors.
A large lack.
A large lack. Or I get completely set on somebody and then I'm disappointed when they're not cast. So I don't like talking about fan casting particularly.
What do you think, Matt?
Well then, I actually, because Daniel had tweeted that out for some reason. Now I can't stop thinking about him as in the role, or like imagining him in the role, which for me, because I do know actors and such, I like to be able to. I like doing fan casting. I like looking through, seeing who can portray somebody like Darrow. The only problem is that Darrow, much like in Ready Player One, where we get H and we get Helen, Darrow almost needs to be played by two people, or maybe by one person, and then just use a lot of CGI for him in
Red Darrow and Gold Darrow.
Yeah. Because they are, like, physically two different people.
I feel like they're going to downplay the changes a little, though.
They always do. I mean, that's always a thing, because, first of all, the reds or the golds are supposed to be super tall, almost elf-like, kind of like elves from Lord of the Rings. That's what I imagine golds as being, because they're tall. They have baby skin, apparently. Soft, baby-like skin. They have
like things on their hands, don't they? Don't they have like gold things coming out of their hands or something? Am I making this up? Whatever. I'm just making stuff up now.
I'm like, not that I know of. But basically, so I almost feel like they're like these elves that I can imagine from Lord of the Rings, which is so funny.
They're probably just gonna like make him blonde and be like, he's a gold now.
Basically, but they do
Starting
have
out
like,
redhead, make him blind.
but they do have gold
So.
eyes too, I believe. I do believe they have gold eyes also, which they'll probably downplay when if a movie ever comes to pass, because they're supposed to be super tall too, and that's probably not gonna happen.
They're not gonna lengthen somebody.
No, and they're not gonna try and CGI all of them to be super
Well, they
tall.
could. I mean, they could make him seem shorter as a red, though, which would be easier because he's that for a shorter period of time.
Yeah, that they can do.
They could do that.
But, budget-wise, I guess, depending on, the film's budget and whatnot, it would be, I mean, in this case, in a book like this, if a movie adaptation were to come out, I don't know if I'd want a complete unknown. Only because I just want it to be really good. And sometimes unknowns aren't.
Jennifer Lawrence was relatively unknown when she was cast. Just saying.
But I think they already saw her in whatchamacallit.
Winter's Bone. Okay, so maybe not like completely unknown, but relatively
I'm like, she was nominated for an Academy Award.
Right. But for an indie film that not many people had seen. So relatively unknown.
For the public, they haven't seen it, but for Hollywood, it's different.
Relatively unknown.
But
YA world unknown.
Well, that doesn't mean much.
It does to us.
Oh, not to you. You don't hardly know any actors, you said.
I know YA people.
Oh my god.
Okay, anyway.
Anyway.
Ansel Elgort. No, just kidding.
Oh my gosh. If you go there.
That's the
if you're going to say like a relative unknown from the YA world, that's pretty easy. I try not to pick people that are not there unless they're really good. But I'm not going to say, oh, Asa Butterfield for everything, or Josh Hutcherson, or something,
or Ansel Elgort,
or Alex Pettyfer.
I was going to say, I will take the Ansel Elgort mention in stride, but I'm going to punch in the face the first person, Alex Pettyfer.
Alex Pettyfer! Oh my gosh. Okay.
Someone wants to ask that boy, and I don't know why, guys.
Miles Teller?
I don't know why.
Anyway, as far as Mustang is concerned, I actually have no idea also because I haven't really looked. But
I think the Mustang in my head looks absolutely nothing like what Mustang is supposed to look like.
Too.
Why is that?
I don't know. I don't think what I pick, because first of all, Mustang and Jackal in my head would never ever ever be related. Like the Mustang in my head is like Asian for some reason.
Really?
And Jackal is like this blonde kid.
That doesn't work because they're twins.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Well, how is it Mustang is Asian?
I don't know. But that's
I'm like, the whole House Augustus could be Asian in a sense.
No, I don't know, but Jackal is a blonde kid. They're not related at all.
A blonde Asian, I guess, if you want.
I think it's just my mind refusing to believe that they're twins, because, like, I love Mustang and I hate Jackal, so they just don't look related in my head. Yeah.
Okay.
And on that note, do we want to wrap it up?
I don't know. Did you want to play an FMK or no?
I'm okay. If you guys want to, I will, but...
Alright, I guess we're going to wrap it up.
Next
So
week, next month, next month.
yeah. So just a couple of things before we end. This is the end of our Fandom Fearless for Red Rising Golden Sun. If you decided to watch us and not read the books, I strongly recommend that you read the books.
Even though you now know all the spoilers.
But reading them is still very, very emotional and effective because there is a lot in there, and we didn't go into a whole lot of details about it that you can still get from it. With that in mind, for next month's Fandom Feels Hangout, we will be discussing. If you can see behind me and see what Ellie is holding up, Illuminate by
Coolest looking
dual
book
writing
ever.
the dual writing team of Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman.
I hope they never make a paperback version of this.
I own one.
No, but that's an arc. That doesn't count.
Okay.
They will make a paperback version of it.
Although this is an arc too, for the record.
Oh,
Bam.
our cool kid.
Anyways, Illuminate by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. It is a YA sci-fi. It is very sci-fi. It is very
Cool.
unique
Yeah.
in the way it's written. I definitely recommend that you give it a chance. It might be a little different. When you start reading it, you might get a little put off, but continue reading it until you get a hold of it. And we'll discuss it more next month.
I will say
the third Monday. That's good to know. The third Monday of February.
Which is
And just keep following us on #FandomFeels for more information on that. And what else is there? After that, we don't know yet, but we'll keep in touch with that one. Otherwise, I think that's it. Did you have anything else to say, Kate?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Ellie, did you have any other comments, suggestions?
I will just say that I put off reading this book for like months because it was overwhelming because of how thick it was and the way I just had no idea what was going on in like looking at it. But it's amazing.
Okay.
And I think
And
Dobby
if you want to follow up more on book news and movie news and TV news, check us out on the fandom.net. Twitter, we're fandomnet. And we are on Instagram as the Fandom .net also, as well as Facebook under the Potter Games.
Or you search the fandom.
Yeah. But basically, we're everywhere. So keep following us, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.